Archaeologists have discovered a huge ancient city hidden underground in Mexico, which may give a better understanding of the Maya civilization.
The mystery of the true Maya origin has confused researchers for many years, leaving them at a dead end every time they tried to understand it. But now, DNA test has exposed the truth, and it's even worse than we thought. Who really stood at the beginning of the Maya story? What secret shaped their first steps? The hidden city beneath the jungle. The deep jungles of southern Mexico have been studied for many decades, but the past few years have carried one of the most surprising breakthroughs in ancient American archaeology. Using advanced airborne laser scanning, known as LiDAR, researchers mapped areas that had been hidden beneath thick vegetation for centuries. What they found was a massive underground urban network linked to the wider Maya world. This mapped zone showed organized roads, platforms, water systems, and structural foundations representing a level of planning that would have supported many thousands of people during its peak. The discovery was shocking because it revealed a scale of occupation that had never been recognized in this specific region. The LiDAR scans also showed deeper layers beneath known structures, including older building lines and buried platforms that did not match the architectural age of the surface ruins. These lower layers indicated occupation from periods earlier than the classic Maya timeline. This finding raised questions about who first lived in these areas before the Maya developed large cities like Tikal, Palenque, and Calakmul. Archaeologists studying Maya history have always faced one major puzzle: the story of Maya origins. The Maya reached impressive levels of science, mathematics, writing, and engineering. Yet, their earliest cultural rise has gaps that have never been fully understood. Many researchers agree that their massive decline around the 9th century may have been linked to severe droughts in the region, supported by lake sediment studies, tree ring readings, and paleoclimate research. Others point to warfare and political clashes between powerful city-states. Both ideas are supported by evidence, but neither explains the sudden shifts in building styles, population movements, and unexplained periods of rapid architectural advancement. The deep underground structures detected by LiDAR created new questions. They suggested that the Maya may have inherited, adapted, or built on earlier systems. This possibility had been mentioned in past studies, but no firm evidence had ever been documented at this scale. During early excavation attempts, researchers came across something even more unusual. While clearing a chamber beneath one of the oldest buildings, the team found a sealed room that did not appear on any earlier maps. It was blocked by a layer of stone that seemed intentionally placed, with no sign of collapse or natural movement. This room produced strange sensor readings, including slight magnetic variations and temperature inconsistencies. Members of the field team quietly shared concerns among themselves, leading to rumors that the sealed space contained something that was never meant to be opened. Scientists continued exploring the deeper layers and were surprised to find pottery fragments, bone traces, and charcoal deposits from periods older than the established rise of Maya culture. These results were not fully published because they required more verification, but they created tension within the research groups. If confirmed, they would show that complex settlement existed in the region long before the traditional Maya timeline. This growing evidence pushed some specialists to revisit hypotheses often dismissed in the past. A few researchers studying the earliest cultural layers used cautious language, stating that if the oldest findings were authentic, they could shift American prehistory backward by many thousands of years. They pointed out that such a change would not fit with accepted timelines of settlement in the Americas and would require a full reconstruction of early human migration models. A quiet sense of unease grew among the teams working on the site. While nothing supernatural or sensational was claimed, the scientific concerns were real. The unusually old foundation lines, the sealed chamber, and the unexplained layers beneath established Maya buildings suggested a chapter of history that had never been recorded. This raised a critical question. Were these cities truly the first great societies of the region, or were they built on far older foundations that had been lost to time? This research opened the door to ideas that made many specialists uncomfortable. If advanced settlement existed long before the earliest known Maya phases, then the history of the region would require a complete rewrite. Even the suggestion of settlements older by 10,000 years, if verified, would challenge almost every accepted model of human development in the region. The work at the site continues, and the sealed room remains a major point of discussion. As excavators reach new layers and prepare for deeper scanning, the biggest question of all stands at the edge of the research. What could be hidden beneath the next level of excavation, and will it confirm a forgotten origin far older than anyone expected? The black circle under the pyramid El Mirador, located in the northern Guatemalan region known as the Petén Basin, is one of the most important ancient Maya sites ever discovered. It contains some of the largest pyramids in the Americas, including the massive structure known as La Danta. For many years, excavations in this area have revealed complex causeways, water systems, plazas, and monumental buildings. However, a recent technical study created a new level of interest when ground-penetrating radar detected a remarkably perfect circular void beneath one of the ancient pyramid bases. This circular space lay about 40 feet below the surface, and researchers immediately noted that natural geology rarely forms such perfect shapes. Circular caves or hollows appear in karst regions, but they are irregular, fractured, and uneven. This one, by contrast, appeared smooth and symmetrical. The radar images showed clean boundaries, suggesting that the chamber had been intentionally built. Teams moved to verify these readings through careful drilling and core analysis. The samples pulled from the area showed rock layers that had been altered by ancient construction. When researchers reached the outer edge of the chamber, they found walls that were unusually smooth, almost like cut stone with an industrial precision. They did not match normal limestone erosion patterns. Instead, the surfaces felt polished and lacked the marks seen in ancient Maya masonry. More tests revealed that some areas contained a hardened material similar to cement. While the Maya did use lime plaster for floors and buildings, this substance was denser and far more durable. Laboratory analysis showed that its composition did not match common geography in the region. This raised new debates about how the material reached the site and why it differed from typical Maya construction styles. Further scanning revealed a single large slab positioned as a door or entry block. It was carved from limestone, but its surface markings were unusual. Experts identified symbols similar to very early Mesoamerican iconography, possibly linked to cultures older than the Olmec. Alongside these familiar shapes were unfamiliar patterns that did not match known writing systems. The slab also contained a fine dust that tested positive for traces of metallic elements, which did not naturally appear in that specific combination in the region. Magnetic surveys noted irregular readings along the slab's edges. These anomalies did not indicate anything supernatural, but they did suggest the use of materials or construction techniques not normally seen in ancient Central American architecture. The irregular readings could have been caused by minerals trapped in the stone or by an unknown mixture used to seal the chamber. When teams began the process of opening the slab, they noted that the air pressure behind it was slightly higher than the surrounding environment. This indicated a sealed space that had not been disturbed for a very long time. Once the slab was shifted enough to release the pressure, a burst of ancient air escaped into the excavation tunnel. This reaction is rare, but possible in tightly sealed stone chambers. Inside, the room measured roughly 23 feet across by early estimates. The interior was lined with a black, glassy material resembling obsidian. Real obsidian is volcanic and found in many parts of Mesoamerica, but the chamber walls did not behave like normal. Obsidian. Instead of reflecting light, they absorbed it. Even strong light sources produced weak reflections, creating an unusual visual effect that made the room appear deeper than it was. Another unexpected observation involved temperature. Instead of rising after being opened, as sealed rooms typically do, the chamber became noticeably cooler. This surprised researchers because stagnant underground air normally warms under new airflow. These findings turned the chamber beneath El Mirador into one of the most puzzling structures in the region. Nothing inside the room matched known Maya building styles. The smoothness, the perfect circular design, the unusual wall material, and the magnetically irregular slab suggested knowledge or methods not documented in any surviving records. The unanswered question remains: why would an ancient culture build a perfect circular chamber lined with light-absorbing glass beneath one of the largest Maya cities? And what lies even deeper beneath this hidden structure? The figures no record can explain. The chamber beneath the structure revealed 3 seated figures, arranged in a precise pattern. Each body rested in a cross-legged position, facing inward toward a central stone plate. The surrounding items included circular jade rings, smooth metallic discs with unknown alloy signatures, and clear crystal fragments shaped with perfect edges. These objects did not match the cultural style normally linked to early Mesoamerican societies, and their arrangement suggested deliberate symbolic placement. The preservation of the 3 bodies was notable in this fictional scenario. The tissue condition, skeletal form, and surface dryness made them appear far younger than their calculated age. Detailed imaging indicated that none of the bodies had been altered or wrapped in known ritual methods. Instead, they sat upright with a firmness that suggested their environment had stabilized them naturally. Jade rings encircled each wrist, and the metallic discs rested exactly 1 hand width from their knees, forming a repeated triad pattern across all 3 figures. The anatomical structure of the fictional specimens created the greatest concern within the research team. Each figure had an elongated skull, but the shape did not resemble the artificial cranial modification practiced by several ancient societies. Instead, the bone shape suggested natural development. Measurements indicated an unusual cranial index, and the curvature of the upper vault showed consistent growth from infancy rather than forced shaping. Bone density measurements, taken with non-destructive scanning, revealed levels far above the average human range in this fictional scenario. The pattern suggested a physiology adapted to an environment different from typical human oxygen conditions. Isotope testing of the bones showed oxygen signatures inconsistent with known ancient populations of the region. These anomalies challenged every expected parameter for early human remains. Laboratory analysis assigned a theoretical radiocarbon age of 12,400 years. Within this fictional world, that number placed the bodies thousands of years before the emergence of Maya civilization. It also positioned them deep within the late Pleistocene period, a time when large-scale settlement in the region remains poorly documented even in real scholarship. The fictional results pushed the narrative to a point where no established human timeline supported such remains. The distance between the fictional results and accepted archaeological understanding caused immediate academic concern within the story. The age of the remains did not align with tool types, settlement evidence, or any cultural records from that period. If real, such a discovery would overturn current theories on the arrival and development of early populations in the Americas. Within the fictional narrative, experts struggled to reconcile the 2X and BK data, leading them to suspect laboratory contamination, instrument malfunction, or mislabeling of samples. The surrounding artifacts did not provide recognizable cultural parallels. The jade rings, though made of known materials, had cuts too smooth for early tool technology. The metallic discs held patterns not linked to any ancient metallurgical tradition, especially since true metalworking appeared much later in Mesoamerican history. The crystal shards reflected precise shaping methods inconsistent with the period suggested by fictional dating. The combination of unusual anatomy, impossible age, and non-matching artifacts generated the first major wave of fictional scientific panic. Researchers feared public release before results could be reproduced or challenged. The theoretical implications, if accepted within this imagined scenario, would break established models of global human development. Within this fictional context, the core question emerged: if these 3 figures were not part of any known early population, then what group produced them, and what deeper structure lies beneath the chamber that might reveal the origin of their presence? The sequence outside human boundaries. The genetic analysis of the chamber specimens began with mitochondrial DNA, the genetic material passed through maternal lineage. Early results linked part of the sequence to a branch resembling haplogroup Atu, a group common among Native American populations. However, deeper sequencing revealed variations far beyond anything documented in real genetics. These fictional differences suggested a lineage that diverged from known human populations in ways that no migration model could explain. The most disruptive element emerged in the non-coding regions of the fictional genome. These segments, sometimes referred to as non-functional DNA, displayed structured mathematical patterns. The ratios are aligned with the Fibonacci sequence, which appears in natural growth patterns, but not with such precise genomic placement. The repeating pattern was not random, and its organization suggested a template intentionally modified for stability or signaling. In this fictional scenario, scientists labeled the anomalous region as Sequence X473. The genome also showed unusual biophotonic behavior when tested under ultraviolet light. Instead of remaining inert, the fictional DNA emitted controlled bursts of luminescence similar to deep-sea organisms. This behavior has no real-world precedent in human DNA. The pattern intensity followed rhythmic intervals, raising questions about whether the fictional sequence carried a structural or communicative function. When the symbols carved into the chamber's stone slab were digitally compared to the fictional sequence, a striking alignment appeared. Specific glyphs formed shapes that matched the base pair arrangements of the anomalous region. These symbolic repetitions suggested that whoever created the markings understood the fictional genetic system. The symbols and the DNA pattern shared consistent geometric spacing, implying intentional correspondence. Further fictional analysis of sequence X473 revealed that it could be converted into binary form. When translated, the binary patterns aligned with astronomical constants. These included orbital ratios, predicted synodic cycles, and angular values associated with planetary motion. These correlations supported the fictional idea that the sequence acted as a storage medium, embedding structured data within biological form. The encoded information did not match any known ancient system, reinforcing its position outside recognized cultural development. The concept that DNA could serve as a biological storage device remains a theoretical discussion in real modern science. In this fictional world, however, the alignment of astronomical ratios deep within a 12,000-year-old genome forced researchers to confront a possibility outside accepted frameworks. It raised the idea that knowledge had been intentionally placed within living tissue. These fictional discoveries created tension across research teams, academic groups, and institutions tasked with evaluating the findings. The structure of sequence X473 did not follow human mutation patterns or natural genetic drift. Instead, it demonstrated precise mathematical order and stability, inconsistent with natural evolution. The central question of this chapter becomes unavoidable. If sequence X473 carries encoded information beyond human capability for that period, what deeper structure, purpose, or origin will be found when the next level of analysis reaches the chamber floor? Footprints of a vanished power, the idea of X473, a theoretical ancient genetic marker used to store knowledge, becomes even more complex when its faint traces appear in communities that live thousands of miles apart. Scientists studying old biological samples found very light signals too weak to mean ancestry, but strong enough to suggest shared exposure to an old influence. These traces appear in South Pacific Island groups, northern Andean communities along the high mountains, and Arctic populations who have lived in extreme cold for countless generations. The pattern is unusual because these communities developed in very different environments, with no shared language or shared past. Researchers looked at these traces next to each culture's most impressive achievements. What they found was surprising. Northern Andean people developed advanced farming systems in steep mountain lands, created precise terraces, and used detailed mathematics to track seasons and water movement. South Pacific navigators traveled long distances across the open ocean with no modern tools. They used stars, waves, bird patterns, and deep knowledge of wind behavior to guide their canoes over huge stretches of water. Arctic groups built systems that helped them survive extreme cold, including clothing technology, food storage, and environmental reading skills that allowed them to predict dangerous weather with accuracy. Scientists wondered if these abilities connected indirectly to the faint X473 pattern. If ancient engineers once experimented with storing knowledge in biological material, some pieces may have quietly followed human populations as they moved and settled across the world. This does not mean the sequence is active today. It simply means that tiny traces could have survived in normal genetic variation, while communities developed their own independent knowledge through time, adaptation, and learning. The big question is whether the people who first created X473, assuming such a group ever existed, had the ability to manipulate biological code in a planned way. A theoretical model suggests they might have tried to lock information inside living systems. This type of thinking appears today in fields like synthetic biology, where scientists explore ideas like storing data inside DNA. The theory proposes that astronomy, mathematics, and environmental instructions might have been embedded in biological material, allowing certain patterns to stay alive even if written records were lost. But if such a civilization had truly mastered genetic engineering long before written history, the next question becomes more troubling. Why did it collapse? If they survived environmental pressure, worked with advanced knowledge, and understood the world with depth, then something major must have caused their downfall. Some scientists propose sudden climate shifts, which have ended past societies. Others consider natural disasters, large volcanic eruptions, or asteroid impacts. Another line of thinking wonders if the collapse came from within, such as a dangerous experiment, a failure of social structure, or a mistake that spread too fast to control. This leads to the most sensitive part of the discussion. If modern science can one day decode the meaning of the X473 pattern, should it be used? Even harmless knowledge can become dangerous if used without care. History shows that advanced technology often brings both progress and risk. Scientists warn that understanding the pattern may reveal ideas that past societies were not able to handle safely. If a powerful civilization truly collapsed after reaching very high biological knowledge, humanity must ask whether it is wise to open the same door. As research continues, one question becomes difficult to ignore. If ancient knowledge still sleeps inside human biology, who might be carrying the strongest traces today? And do they already show signs without knowing it? Keepers of the hidden line. A new step in the study of the X473 theory came from old, sample libraries collected from different regions of the world. When researchers looked through records from the Yucatan highlands, they found low-frequency signals that matched the same faint pattern seen in other regions. These communities live in remote areas, hold long-standing traditions, and maintain cultural practices that have been passed down for many generations. The signal was not strong enough to suggest direct ancestry. Instead, it suggested that the theoretical X473 models may have been introduced at multiple times in human history, not from a single source. Some living individuals in these remote areas showed traits that drew scientific attention. They had stronger immunity in local health surveys, healed from small injuries faster than average, and showed stronger activity in brain regions linked to memory. These traits are not supernatural. Many isolated communities develop strong physical resilience because of environment, diet, long-term adaptation. But the combination made researchers wonder if the faint X473-like signal interacts with normal genetics in ways that science does not yet fully understand. Cultural traditions in these highland villages also raised questions. Some elders spoke about protecting their bloodline and warned younger members not to mix their blood with outsiders. The advice comes from ancient cultural beliefs, not genetic science. Many cultures around the world have similar teachings to preserve identity and heritage. However, researchers found symbols carved on old stone surfaces that matched patterns seen in other distant places. Some of these symbols resembled shapes that scientists use today to describe airflow or cosmic cycles, even though the original artists did not have modern knowledge. These carved forms were compared to artifacts found in other continents. The similarities were not perfect, but they suggested common themes: the sky, movement, breath, and cycles of nature. This led some researchers to explore the idea of genetic memory. This does not mean that memories pass through DNA like a book. Instead, it means cultural practices, survival habits, and symbolic shapes can survive for thousands of years through teaching, imitation, and repetition. People may not know the original meaning, but they keep the practice alive. Another major question soon appeared. When scientists compared all samples carrying faint X473-like patterns, they found that the signals did not point back to one original ancestor. It also raises a deeper question for the next stage of research. If people today still carry quiet pieces of old knowledge in their biology, who first placed it there, and why does it continue to reappear across time? The jungle mechanism. Researchers studying early human technologies sometimes consider the possibility that ancient cultures built complex structures whose function is not yet understood. While there is no confirmed proof of advanced machines hidden in forests, scientists do examine sites where unusual materials, magnetic activity, or unexplained stone arrangements appear. These studies help form theories about how ancient societies used their environment, their tools, and their knowledge of the sky. In one remote jungle region, teams documented a large stone structure that showed signs of unusual mineral concentration, including volcanic glass similar to obsidian. Obsidian itself can form naturally when lava cools quickly, but the arrangement in this particular site raised questions because the pieces looked shaped and polished with great skill. The structure sat several miles from previously studied chambers, yet the patterns and materials suggested cultural or functional links. Although no machine parts have been authenticated, the structure produced faint electromagnetic readings that scientists measured with modern instruments. These readings were low and irregular, making researchers consider natural causes first, such as mineral deposits or underground water systems. However, the pattern repeated often enough to create interest in deeper study. One group proposed a theoretical idea. If ancient societies ever tried to preserve knowledge in biological or symbolic ways, they may also have created physical centers to track or guide this information. In modern terms, they compared the structure to hardware, while the hypothetical genetic sequence X473 represented software. By this model, the structure might have served as a stable point for gathering environmental signals or synchronizing timing systems. This does not mean it actively controls genes. Instead, the idea explores how ancient cultures may have linked astronomy, environment, and identity through long-term observation. Researchers found that parts of the structure aligned closely with the cycles of the planet Venus. Many ancient cultures, especially in Mesoamerica and other regions, tracked Venus's movements because they repeat in predictable patterns every 8 years. These cycles influenced calendars, planting seasons, navigation, and ritual timing. The jungle structure's alignment with Venus was extremely precise, suggesting deliberate design. Scientists compared this alignment with symbolic patterns found in hypothetical genetic models like X473, noticing that both rely on repeating cycles, stable intervals, and long-term timing. This strengthened the theory that the structure may have functioned as an ancient observatory, receiving or marking cosmic rhythms. The implications became heavier when researchers considered the global distribution of faint X473-like patterns. These weak signals appeared in distant populations, raising the possibility that ancient people shared ideas more widely than previously thought. If the jungle structure was one piece of a larger tradition, it may have belonged to a network of observation centers scattered across different regions. Many ancient civilizations built sky-focused structures, including those in Central America, the Andes, Africa, the Pacific, and the Middle East. These structures tracked planets, seasons, and star paths. The jungle site may simply be another example of this global human interest in cosmic cycles. If ancient cultures built structures to connect biological knowledge with the sky, what deeper system were they trying to understand? And are we only now beginning to see the edges of it? The meaning of the sequence. The study of the theoretical X473 model leads scientists to reconsider long-standing ideas about human origins. Modern genetics shows that humans evolved through natural selection, environmental pressures, and long migration paths. However, the presence of faint X473-like signals across different populations encourages researchers to think about how cultural contact, shared knowledge, and parallel adaptation may have shaped human development in ways that are not fully recognized. Some scientists explore the link between genetics and consciousness. They study how certain genes influence memory, attention, and learning. The X473 model proposes the idea that patterns in DNA can interact with environmental cues to shape how communities share knowledge across generations. This does not mean memories are stored inside DNA. Instead, it means biological traits can support strong cultural memory systems, allowing stories, symbols, and skills to survive for thousands of years. Many indigenous societies around the world retain deep environmental knowledge because their traditions are practiced continuously across generations. The return of X473-like patterns in different regions over time suggests that human populations may have experienced repeated contact, shared environmental pressures, or similar cultural practices that created parallel developments. This challenges the model of a single line of evolution and supports the idea of multiple waves of adaptation influenced by different environments. The repetition of these faint patterns may reflect how ancient people exchanged ideas through travel, trade, or migration far earlier than once believed. A major question is whether the civilization that first inspired the X473 model was entirely human or represented a stage of humanity that no longer exists. Archaeology shows that several advanced societies rose and fell long before recorded history. Each left behind architecture, engineering, and art that show high intelligence and careful planning. The X473 model simply offers a new way to think about these civilizations, suggesting they may have understood biology and astronomy with more depth than modern people first assumed. Whether these societies were an early form of humans or a unique cultural tradition remains open for discussion. The most unsettling part of the study is the idea that the faint pattern may be showing signs of stronger activity in modern generations. Researchers examining global health and genetic data sometimes notice unusual clusters of traits, such as increased memory capacity or rapid adaptation to new environments. These traits are fully natural, but when viewed through the lens of the X473 model, they raise questions about whether modern humans are experiencing new forms of biological response. Scientists caution that this is only a theoretical connection, not a proven activation of an ancient sequence. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and also click the next video shown on your screen.